I see the same dilemma all the time. Agency owners know they need to scale, but they're not sure whether they should hire an agency and outsource all the work or just pay for a SaaS and keep the processes and operations in-house. I've been on both sides. I've scaled my agency to 7 figures and I've built a SaaS platform with hundreds and hundreds of users, and we also provide a done-for-you service. So in this video, I'm going to give you a clear answer, what works best for who, and how you should decide whether you should hire an agency or use a SaaS platform. I've created a comparison table here so we can rank both agencies and SaaS platforms based on different categories. First of all, there's no right or wrong answer here. For every single process in your company, you can outsource the work completely to a freelancer, agency, or someone else, and that's completely fine. While for other processes, you can subscribe to different SaaS platforms and teach someone from your team or use the platform yourself. Again, both options work. We just need to understand when we should rely on each of these options. So some examples here are hiring an agency is best for example, paid ads, multi-channel strategy, or creative or content work. This is like a lot of work that needs to be done manually. The best way to do that is to hire someone who can deliver the work. While on the other hand, other tasks like social media scheduling, data enrichment, cold email outreach, analytics, reporting, and stuff like that, these tasks are all repeatable and admin tasks. So all of that, most likely there's a SaaS platform out there that can deliver the same job for way less than hiring a person to do so. We need to understand that both of these options serve a single purpose, which is there's a process that needs to be done. Like we have an input and we need certain output. Depending on how complex the process is, how much time it takes to do so, we choose different options, whether it's an agency or a freelancer or maybe hiring someone in-house or using a software to do the exact same thing. There are other categories when it comes to deciding which option is best for you, like dependency. Dependency is a huge factor here. If you outsource the work to outside contractors, you have high dependency on external team, which may be great in the short term because you're essentially extending your team with qualified talent and so on, which can deliver the results pretty fast than teaching someone how to do the exact same job from scratch. But on the other hand, you depend on the outside contractor. They may get a better client or a better job opportunity, it doesn't matter. If they leave your company or decide to stop working with you, you just lost the entire workflow of your company. So this is a huge risk factor. On the other hand, if you use a SaaS platform, you essentially integrate the delivery of that specific job inside your company, but it requires an internal team to operate that. Like most SaaS tools can't do 100% of work automatically. Like even if they do 99% of the job on autopilot, there still needs to be someone who can track the results, manage the tool, and so on. And usually that's someone from inside the company, someone within the internal team. If you're a small agency, small company, mostly founders do this job, but yeah, as you scale, you have different people within the company operating the machine for you. The advantages of choosing a SaaS when it comes to dependency is that it becomes a part of your company's workflows, processes, operations, but someone from the team needs to know how to operate it. The next one is expertise. This is one of the main factors as well. Agencies provide you with immediate expert knowledge and creative execution, meaning they've done their best to find the best possible talent for that specific process or that specific job. And by hiring an agency, you get access to top quality talent immediately. This is not always the case, which is why you should research the potential agencies that you want to work with. You should check their case studies, maybe some references and so on. Ultimately, the goal of the agency is to hire the best possible talent. So when you become their client, you know you're getting the results that you wanted in the first place. That's when it comes to the agency. For SaaS, on the other hand, this means that you're only getting a tool, you're getting a software, and the creative strategy behind using that tool still needs to be done in-house, meaning you are the one or your team need to be in charge of the overall strategy of how to use this tool, and so on, which means it requires you to bring expertise yourself instead of relying on someone else finding the talent and so on. In some cases, like for example our SaaS platform, you also get a dedicated expert who shows you how to use the platform in the best possible way, who assists you along the way. But this is not often the case. 99% of SaaS platforms will just give you the tool, maybe some tutorials, and that's pretty much it. They don't really care how you use the platform because it's not scalable. They need to assign different experts to teach their users how to achieve better results. Now, in our case, we do that, and I know a couple of other SaaS platforms that do the same. But most of the time, you would be the one responsible for actually using the tool properly. The next one is control, which is similar to dependency, but unique in its own way. For example, if you hire an agency, you most likely have less control and you rely on agencies' processes. Most of the agencies, they have specific SOPs. Their employees are trained in a certain way, which means you can't just hire them and change all of their workflows and everything overnight. It just doesn't work like that. Most likely you'll have to adapt your internal company policies and communication and workflows to the agency's workflows and SOPs. Now, imagine if you're relying on 6-7 different agencies for 6-7 different fields within your company. It quickly becomes a nightmare, meaning you need to manage essentially 7 different types of workflows and everything. And I'll explain our process, how we decide between the two in a second, but usually what we do is we start with automation, try to automate the process. If it's not possible, if a human is required, we start with an agency, and then ultimately we collect the knowledge, the experience, the workflows and everything, and then we hire someone in-house later on. Control agency gives you less control. You need to adapt to their processes. With SaaS, it's different because you have more control. You can adapt the software, especially if you use automation platforms like Make.com, Zapier, and so on. You can essentially connect any SaaS platform to your internal processes, and you essentially bend the usage and the output of a SaaS platform to adapt to your internal processes, workflows, and so on. This means that at the end of the day, you'll have a very structured system and processes within your company, and it doesn't matter which SaaS platform you use, you always get their data and convert the data so you can get the maximum out of it. You 100% control the process, but it brings more responsibility because you're the one responsible if something breaks or something like that. Maybe the most important piece, results. With agencies, you can usually get faster short-term wins since experts execute directly. You don't really care how they do it, you just want results and you hire someone to achieve these results for you. Now, if it's a great agency, you'll most likely get results pretty fast depending on what exactly you need. Like if you hire a video editing agency, within a week or 2 weeks they'll start producing outputs that you'd be happy with. If it's a paid ads agency, it would take some more time for them to understand your market and so on. But all in all, the results are usually pretty fast, and short-term wins are usually seen within a couple of weeks or a couple of months. The problem here is that over time, what can happen is that they get new clients, they change their process and so on. So sometimes agencies would over time dedicate less effort to your work, or for example, they assign you a senior person in the beginning, and then after, let's say, six months or a year, they transfer your work once it's fully established to someone less senior or medium or a junior or something like that, and the results slowly start fading over time. Now, this is not always the case, but usually that's what happens. With SaaS platforms, there's a bit more work up front because you're the one configuring the system, setting up everything and so on, which means there's slower ramp up because your team need to understand how to use the tool, how to execute properly and so on. But over time, the quality gets better and better because you're essentially building an in-house asset, meaning the more time you invest into it, the more better the processes will be, the better results will be in the long run. So the next one is flexibility. You probably already know this, but the processes and systems change very frequently, especially in the digital space, because what happens now and what works now will most likely not work in 6 months or a year. You'll have to change the strategy over time. So with agencies, rigid one scope is set. Changes often cost more because agencies need predictability, so they're not that open to you changing the entire workflow or changing the criteria or scope of work or anything like that. While if you use a SaaS platform, you can essentially adjust the process and the scope of work anytime you want. You can pivot campaigns quickly, you can change the strategy, you can do whatever you want to do. And lastly, long-term value. Agencies are great for projects or temporary needs, less sustainable long-term. Again, as I said previously, in the short run, agencies work great, but if you look at the entire situation in a long-term matter, it's usually better to build an internal process, hire someone in-house, and so on. We usually start with an agency because we can scale up or scale down the team pretty quickly to adapt to our needs. And over time, we try to find a software and a person we can bring in-house to manage the software to do the exact same process in-house. So yeah, on the SaaS side of things, compounds over time, builds internal capability and scale, which is always a better option. One other factor to consider is the price. I haven't added it here to the table, but let's discuss the price because this is one of the most important factors. Agencies are usually expensive. What you're paying for here is not just the person who delivered the work. You're paying for the entire system and the entire process. You're paying for their workflows, for their expertise, for their past experiences. If they worked with similar companies like yours, they'll most likely understand and how to do the exact same job for you as well. So if you want to do the exact same process yourself, you still need to figure it out and so on. And agencies usually already know what to do. They just need to execute. The strategy and the research phase is much shorter than it would be if you're doing this yourself. Now with SaaS, depending on the platform and the process that you want to optimize, deliver, and so on, you may need to hire an additional person who can manage the process and so on. But with some platforms, sometimes it makes more sense to invest in a better platform if it automates like 95% of the work, so you don't even need to hire someone, which is what we try to achieve with our platform. Like you can manage the entire workflow with 1 or 2 hours per month. Here's a chart that can help you decide whether you should hire an agency or start looking for a SaaS platform to deliver a certain part of the job. So the first question is, do you want to fully outsource and you don't care how it's done, you just want to focus on results, which means you don't care about learning how to do this in-house. Now, depending on your specific need and your process, your industry, and so on, the answer can be different. But if the answer is yes, if you don't care how it's done, you just want the results, and you don't think it's valuable to have this skill in-house, so you can do it no matter if your agency stops working or whatever. If the answer is yes, then you should hire an agency. That's it. If the answer is no, the next question would be, do you or your team have capacity to manage a tool with support? Some tools provide better support, some tools provide less support, but do you have the capacity to manage the tool? Which means you'd like this to become an in-house system or in-house asset. If the answer is yes, then you should definitely find a SaaS platform that can do that job. If the answer is no, then the question is, are you optimizing for long-term scalability and cost efficiency? Is owning the process important to you? If it's not, then you should hire an agency. If it is, then you should find a SaaS. Now, one thing to keep in mind, especially with AI updates and everything that's going on, SaaS plus AI will soon become almost the same as an agency. The problem was, for more complex work, you would need to hire an agency or freelancer or in-house employee to deliver the job. And for simple tasks, but repetitive ones, you would find a SaaS platform that can do that for you. Now, with AI plus SaaS platforms, more of the work that was only reserved to agencies is now becoming solvable and doable by SaaS plus AI combination, which means as AI gets better and better over time, the less you would have to rely on external people or in-house people, and the more you could outsource or delegate to the actual AI system and AI platform, which is happening right now, for example, with cold email, call centers, and so on. So over time, more and more things will be outsourced to these types of platforms that automate the entire workflows, similar to what you would do with an agency. And to sum it up, the wrong choice is not hiring an agency or using a SaaS platform. The wrong choice is misalignment, meaning you need to understand what you need at the moment, what's the most effective and efficient choice for your company at your current stage. And again, depending on the process itself, whether human expertise is needed, whether the process can be automated, whether you care about owning the process. Only then, based on all those factors, you can actually decide whether hiring an agency or using a SaaS platform is a better choice for you. If you like this video and you'd like to learn more about growing an agency or a SaaS platform, then subscribe to the channel because I'll be posting videos like this every single week.